Hello, this video is to be a complete guide to leveling as a Warlock in PvE in Classic WoW. So, I'm not a content creator, I'm just a normal person. And why am I making this video? I'm making this video guide because about 5 years ago, I was leveling a Warlock on the newly released Classic Realms. And I was killing some turtles in Tanaris, and a troll hunter comes up to me and he stops and watches me fight them for several minutes. And after a while, he says, "I've never seen a Warlock play quite like you, and that I should make a YouTube video about me fighting." So, a few days after that, I made a video of me fighting some Feralas bears, and I put a backtrack of classical music to it and threw it up on YouTube. But when I threw it up on YouTube, I said it was a leveling guide in the introduction. To be honest, looking back, it really wasn't a guide. A few days ago, someone sent me an email through YouTube and said that the video was cool and all, but it couldn't really be called a guide because I never explained anything about what I was doing. And when I got the message, I was actually really shocked because, as I said, I totally forgot I'd even made a YouTube video. I was really surprised someone would even be watching that video. It's a 5-year-old video, and I think only a few people even watched it. But this guy was also right. I had never explained anything about anything in that video. So in this video, I'll be trying to break down and explain everything I know about how to play a Warlock. I'll try and explain it so that even new players can understand it, but I hope they bear with me because I've been playing Warlock so long that I don't even know what needs explaining. So I'll try to explain as much as physically possible. I hope advanced players will also bear with me when I say things that are extremely obvious to them. So when you first create your Warlock, I'm going to start off with what happens when you first create your Warlock. You're going to come into your starting zone, and you're going to be level 1, and you're going to start with, on your bars, an attack symbol. It's going to look like a dagger. In this spot here, it's going to be Shadow Bolt, and in this spot here, it's going to be a spell called Demon Skin. And when you first get your Warlock, that's all the stuff you're going to get. And to be honest, you're extremely weak at level 1. Shadow Bolt, rank 1, is going to be your only damaging spell. So when you first come in, you're going to have a quest right in front of you usually. And you're going to take that quest. And one of the quests is usually kill some boars or something. If it's humans, it's kobolds. If it's undead, it's these undead things. Anyway, it's going to be killed like this level 1 mob. And you're only going to have melee, Shadow Bolt, and Demon Skin. So this is a mistake I've seen a lot of new people make. Is they'll run up to this. They'll grab the quest and they'll run up to the new mob, and the very first thing they'll do is they'll go up to the mob and actually just melee them. So that is a mistake because Warlock's melee is really bad. At the beginning of the game, all you get is a dagger. You see how little damage I'm doing? I haven't leveled up my skill or anything, but this is not how you're actually supposed to be playing a Warlock. When you get the dagger, you're going to be doing like 3 or 4 damage a hit, and it's just a total mistake to just run up and melee the mob. You are a spellcaster class. So what that means is every class has things they're good at and things they're bad at. And spellcaster classes are very good at casting spells and are very bad at fighting melee. So when you're a caster class, you're going to be fighting melee. Most caster classes, you never should be fighting melee. Warlocks have a little bit of time period where they have to fight melee simply because the spells you get at the start are actually not particularly good. But yeah, so that's that. So I think I should mention what spellcaster casts are. So when you're casting as a spellcaster casts, there's a certain thing called pushback. So what happens is, I'm going to pull this guy toward me. So when you are I'm going to cast Shadow Bolt after it starts hitting me. So when you're casting, you see this is called pushback. When a mob hits you, when you're casting a spell, it takes longer for that spell to go off. So obviously, when you are casting a spell, the last thing you actually want is the mob to be hitting you. When the mob is hitting you, the spell will take longer to cast. When a spell is taking longer to cast, it's inefficient to be casting a casting spell while a mob is actually hitting you. It's the same thing for a channeling spell. You're going to get certain spells on certain classes have a thing called channeled. On Drain Life, for example, so Warlocks also have a Drain Soul, which is a channeled. So what happens with a channeled is the opposite problem, where instead of taking longer for the spell to go off, a channeled spell actually completely reduces the duration of the spell. So you see, I only did Drain Soul for a few seconds there, and I don't think it even did really much damage to it at all. But it's a 15-second channel. Drain Soul's a 15-second channel. So I just wasted 55 mana basically by doing that. Your mana is your resource. Wasting mana is a bad idea. You want to make sure every point you spend of mana is totally worth it. If you spend mana and don't get any return for it, it's a total waste of mana. So anyway, when you first start off, you're gonna start off with the melee, the Shadow Bolt, and the demons. Oh, I should mention Demon Skin. Demon Skin is a buff, and what a buff is you click it once, and it'll use quite a bit of your mana. I think at the beginning of the game, it'll use like half your mana. Yeah, but probably about half your mana when you first cast it. And Demon Skin's a very important buff for a Warlock. But it's not particularly good at low levels. It's only, I'll explain later why it's good, but it's usually not particularly good between levels of 1 and 10. It's only mediocre. But even though it's mediocre, you're going to want to keep it up at all times. So say I don't have it. You have to put it on yourself as make sure it's always on your character. You may have seen this, how it turned red. I actually have an add-on that tells me when I don't have it on, to remind myself to put it on at all times. If you see this countdown getting low and you want to get out of combat and put it back on yourself, because you want this on yourself all the time. So when you first start the Warlock, your only damaging ability will be Shadow Bolt. So when you go up to a mob, you're going to go up to a mob. It's going to be like a wolf or something. And you're going to cast Shadow Bolt. And Shadow Bolt costs 25 mana and only does 13 to 18 damage. So, and it also takes quite a long time to cast. Now, Warlock, I think I said all classes have certain things that they're good at. Warlocks are a spellcaster class, so they're good at spells. But unfortunately, they are very bad at direct damage. I think that there's a thing called direct damage. So I use Shadow Bolt. The bolt goes out, hits the mob. It shows a number above his head. That's direct damage. So Warlocks also get things called dots, where if I cast this spell, it puts basically a weakening spell on the opponent, and the opponent will take damage over time. And the way damage over time works in Classic WoW is every 3 seconds, that part of the damage will occur. So in this particular instance, Immolate, every 3 damage, it'll do 4 damage to the mob. So Immolate's special because it's both a direct damage and a dot. But anyway, so it'll do 10 damage, and then every 3 seconds after the spell is cast, it'll do 5 damage. When you are level 1, you actually have the ability to go train Immolate level 1 at your trainer immediately. That's actually what you're going to want to do, is you're going to fight your first few mobs. You're going to take your mobs trash that you pick up, and you're going to go and sell it to the vendor and try and get 10 copper, and immediately go to your trainer and train Immolate. You may still be level 1 at that point. You may have hit level 2. Level 2 doesn't take too many mobs to get to. I think it takes like 8 mobs or something. So you're going to be level 2 or level 1 with Immolate. When you are at your Warlock trainer, there's going to be a quest at, I think, at the Demon trainer of the Warlock trainer, but it may actually be the Warlock trainer. To get an imp, your first pet. So Warlocks also have an ability to summon pets. One of the pets that they can summon is called an imp. So I'm going to summon him out right now. So an imp is actually a spellcaster pet. He does not attack, even though he says on here that he has a main hand attack. He actually does not attack. What he does is he casts Firebolt. When you are level 1 or level 2 and you went and got Immolate like I suggested, and got your Warlock quest, you're going to do that quest immediately. I think Undead having a bit of an advantage on their Imp quest because they can do it started at level 1. Most classes require you to at least start at level 2. Oh, I should probably explain that. So in World of Warcraft, say I have a quest to kill these pigs over here. That's actually a bad example. Say I have a quest to kill these flesh rippers, and let's say the flesh rippers have there's flesh rippers with level 10, and there's flesh rippers out there with level 11. So in this quest to kill flesh rippers, the best time to actually fight a flesh ripper is when you are within 2 levels of the flesh ripper. So of the highest level flesh ripper. So the lowest level I would actually fight these mobs at is level 9. Because there's level 10 flesh rippers, and say that out there's level 11 flesh rippers I have to kill. So because it's a level 11 flesh rippers out there to kill, level 9 would be the lowest level I would actually start doing that quest. If there's a quest that has only a single mob on it, it's okay to start, like, say you have like an assassinate quest where you only have to kill 1 mob. It might be okay to do that quest a little earlier, but if you have a quest that tells you to kill like 30 flesh rippers, you're going to want to be like at least level 9 before you do that quest. So the Warlock quest, most Warlock quests are in the level 4 zones of the starting zones, but the Undead Warlock quest is a level 3 starting quest. So because it's a level 3 starting quest, you can start it at level 1, and the level 4 starting quest, you should start it at level 2. So when you get Immolate, you're going to have Immolate. First thing you're going to have to do is open up your spellbook and put it on your bar. You're going to drag it down to your bar. So when you get Immolate, the way you're going to be fighting is changed, because I think I mentioned Shadowbolt requires quite a lot of mana. When you start the game, you're only going to have like 120 mana. So because you only have like 120 mana, you're only able to cast Shadowbolt 4 times before you have to stop. And when you're casting 4 times, you're going to completely empty out your mana bar. It's going to kill like 1 mob, and then you're just going to sit there and have to wait for your mana bar to come all the way back. Now, you could also use water. You're going to start the game with some water. When you use the water, unfortunately, water is expensive. It actually costs quite a bit of money to buy, especially at higher levels. So you're going to actually not want to drink water or eat food as much as physically possible. That's just going to save you money. In terms of time, the way you're going to do it is so you're just going to have to wait for your mana bar to come back. When you finally get Immolate, that will stop, because Immolate does, let me bring up first rank Immolate. So when you get Immolate, it will also cost 25 mana, but you see how Shadowbolt only does a total of 13 to 18 damage, whereas Immolate does a total of 30 damage. This is with the exact same mana. So Warlocks are very good at dots, as I said. So in this game, you're going to be using your dots because your direct damage is going to be really terrible compared to other classes. Your dots are actually quite amazing in terms of efficiency. So obviously 30 damage for 25 mana is a lot better than 15 damage for 25 mana. When you get Immolate, the way you're going to do it is you're going to run up to the mob and you're going to use Shadow Bolt a couple of times, maybe once or twice. And after you do that, you're going to use Immolate. And you're going to put Immolate on the mob. And then after that, you're just going to melee. And the reason you're doing that, I think I mentioned you're not actually supposed to melee. As a Warlock, you're going to be meleeing at the very beginning simply because you have no way to handle a mob that with the dot on it. So this is assuming you have your Immolate, you have your Shadow Bolt, and you have melee, and that's the only damaging things you have. The reason you do that is while you're fighting the mob, you may have seen I spent mana for the Shadow Bolt and I spent mana for the Immolate, but now my mana is already at full. And the reason is the way mana works is it starts regenerating 5 seconds after you've cast a spell. So when you've lost your mana through Shadow Bolt and Immolate, and you start meleeing, by the time you melee the mob down, your mana has already gone back to full. That's what you're going to do, is you're going to do that during the time period where you're getting your imp. When you finish the quest and you get your imp, you're going to do something very similar. You're going to run up to the mob. You're going to tell you, actually, very first thing you're going to do when you get the imp is you're going to go into your options. You're going to go into your options and you're going to, where is this? Key bindings. And you're going to change pet action 1, pet action 10 to something. I used mouse wheel up and mouse wheel down. You can use anything as long as you make sure to remember it. What you're going to want to do is, you want to be able to control your pet. The pet can only be sent out and come back. That's the only control you have. So you're going to want to make sure you have lots of control. See, I'm going to send my pet out. Now I'm going to tell him to come back. Now I'm going to tell him to send out. Now I'm going to tell him to come back. You see, I have complete control over what the pet is doing. You don't want to be someone that is unable to control your pet. If you're unable to control your pet, the pet may attack something you don't want it to attack. It may not attack something, wasting your time. It's just, you want to make sure you have complete control over your pet. So after that, after you've finished binding those key bindings, you're going to run up to the mob and you're going to tell your pet to attack, and then you're going to Shadow Bolt, and then you're going to Immolate, and you're going to attack it. And the Immolate and your pet will help you kill the mob. And that's the reason why you want to get the pet as soon as possible, because, as I said, doing a Shadow Bolt and Immolate and just waiting for the mob to die on your dagger is not particularly fast. The imp actually quite speeds it up. So, as I said, the imp is a spellcaster pet. When he runs completely out of mana, he will actually just stop attacking, just stand there, even if you tell it to attack. So that's an important thing to take into account. That's one of the reasons why he's actually the worst pet, is because he runs out of mana too quickly and he'll just stand there and look at you like you're an idiot. You're going to be leveling up after that, and you're going to be doing basically the same thing for quite a while until level 5. At level 5, you get the ability to equip a lesser magic wand. So lesser magic wands are created by players, and they're generally just sold on the auction house. Sometimes people give them away. They're going to cost about 6 silver usually. So when you get level 5, you want to make sure you save as much money as possible and go buy a magic wand. If you don't have the 6 silver, you're going to have to level up some more like that until you get the 6 silver and you go buy it. After level 5, you're going to be throwing out your melee skill. You don't need your melee skill anymore, and you're going to replace it with shoot. You see, I've already done that. I've replaced melee with shoot. And the reason is when you first get your magic wand, it's going to be your best damaging ability. To be honest, it's actually probably one of the best abilities that you can have throughout the game. What you're going to end up doing is you're going to run up to a mob, and you're going to tell your pet to attack the mob, and you're going to immolate, and then you're just going to wand the mob to death. And this is going to be a lot faster than what you were doing before. You're probably going to just throw Shadow Bolt off your bars at that point, because Shadow Bolt will be doing less damage a second than just the wand, the lesser magic wand. That occurs until like later in the game. Shadow Bolt will become more useful again later in the game. But basically at the beginning of the game, you will rarely use Shadow Bolt because your wand is just so much better than Shadow Bolt. You'll be throwing dots on it. I think at that time you'll have Corruption. It's also common to use Immolate and then Corruption and then Wand, or just Corruption and Wand. It depends on how you want to do it. Later, I think at level 8, you're going to get Curse of Agony. When you get Curse of Agony, you won't actually be using it for a while. The reason is Curse of Agony takes 24 seconds to finish the curse. You see, these guys take 15 seconds, and this guy, well, actually, I think the first one is 12 seconds. Yes, 12 seconds. But you see, this one takes 24 seconds. Most mobs are dead before you get 24 seconds. Like, when you have the wand, it only takes, 12 seconds to kill a mob. So the main problem with Curse of Agony is, you may have noticed it says in the description, Curse of Agony, the damage is dealt slowly at first and builds up over time. So the Curse of Agony, the first few ticks of Curse of Agony do very little damage. So what I'm going to put Curse of Agony on this guy to show you. It's only going to do 4 damage a tick for a while. So see, 4 damage a tick, 4 damage a tick, 4 damage a tick, 4 damage a tick, and now it's ramping up 8 damage a tick, 8 damage a tick. So what this means is Curse of Agony is actually only really useful near the end of its life cycle. You actually don't want to cast Curse of Agony on a mob that's going to take less than 24 seconds to kill. So you're not going to be using it right at the beginning. It's very important later, but at level 8, you're basically not going to be using it. You're going to use the Immolate, you're going to be using Corruption, you're just going to wand those creatures down to death. And that's what you're going to be doing. At level 10, you're going to get the quest to summon a Voidwalker. It's just like the quest to summon the Imp, but it's a bit more complicated. It's a level 10 quest. It starts from your starting zone main city. So for humans, it will actually start in Stormwind. And for Undead, for example, it'll start in Undercity. And that's what you're going to do is at level 10 you're immediately going to go do that quest, because the Voidwalker is much better than the Imp. Once you get the Voidwalker, your playstyle will change drastically. So I've mentioned how you're going to play between 1 and 5. I've mentioned how you're going to play between 5 and 10. Now I'm going to mention between 10 and 20. So when you first get the Voidwalker, I've seen a lot of people make this mistake, is they say, oh, this guy's very tanky looking, he has Torment, which taunts, this guy is going to be tanking for me in the future, just like how hunter pets work. Then they run over and throw their pet at the mob, and they dot up this guy, and they start wanding. And you see, the problem with this is actually the pet is actually not very good at holding aggro. You see, he almost pulled. Now he's pulling at me. The pet cannot hold aggro. The Warlock pet is actually very, very bad at holding aggro. On top of that, the Voidwalker does extremely little damage. It does 5 damage a second. So, for an example, I'm going to take this and throw him. So, you see, this Voidwalker is a level 15 Voidwalker, and this Flesh Ripper is level 13. I'm going to tell the Voidwalker to attack it. You'll notice that if I don't do anything and just let the Voidwalker attack it, look how weak the Voidwalker is. The Voidwalker will actually die before it even kills one mob. The reason for that is the Voidwalker is not meant to be used in this manner. It is also, as I said, not actually meant to be used as a tank. Oh, I should probably mention how aggro works. So the way aggro works in this game is, see how my Voidwalker's hitting that mob for 7 damage, 8 damage? Every time the Voidwalker hits that mob, it gains aggro, that much aggro. So it gains 7 aggro, it gains 8 aggro. This time it gained 1 aggro. And I probably better go save him. So what this torment does is it gains aggro without damage. And the amount of aggro it gains, I can't tell you the exact amount because I don't remember, but it's extremely low. If you throw this pet at someone and dot him up and start wanding the guy, that's a total waste because the mob will come off of him and start hitting you, and you don't want to be hit. I should probably explain why the Warlocks especially don't want to be hit. Other classes like mages and stuff, it doesn't matter if you're hit a bit, but Warlock's health is actually your mana. Life tap gives you an ability to turn your health into mana. So say I have low mana, I'm gonna cast Demon Skin a few times. When I cast this, it'll take my health and give me mana. So basically, any health that you have actually can be changed to mana, and the mana you have can be changed to damage on the mob with your dots. So any health that you lose is actually reducing your efficiency of play. So as a Warlock, you actually never want to be hit by anything. Every single bit of health. So say I run up and get hit by this Flesh Ripper. He's going to do something like 19 damage to me. So 18 damage. I just lost 18 health. I lost 18 mana because of that. That 18 mana could have been turned into 40 damage. So I just lost a huge amount of time and efficiency. I have to wait for my health to come back. It's just a total waste of time. You don't want to be hit ever. As a Warlock, when you are level 10 to level 20, you're going to be fighting in a certain way. I would like to call it like something like training wheels, basically, where you will send your pet in. The pet will hold aggro when you're applying dots. So you're going to be applying Immolate, you're going to be applying Corruption, you're going to be applying Curse of Agony. And then you're going to run up and fear the mob. And you're going to pull back your pet. Now, after that, you're going to tell your pet to go attack this guy. So you see, I'm still fighting this mob. I'm keeping him within a certain range. And the pet is going to go fight this mob. So you see, this mob's almost dead. I'm going to do the same thing again. And then I'm going to go tell him to fight this mob. So this mob's almost dead. Now I'm going to tell him to fight this mob. I might wand this guy to death. Oh no, he's already dead. Now I'm going to fear this one. And the idea is you will always be in combat. You see, during that time period, I was in combat with several different mobs in a row, and all of them died with my Voidwalker being pretty good. He's about half health, actually. So what do you do when your Voidwalker's low in health? You complete combat, and your Voidwalker's regenerating health, and then you actually do not use your Voidwalker. You fight without your Voidwalker. And you see, I'm in combat, and I'm fighting this mob, but the Voidwalker is actually not in combat, and he will regenerate health while not in combat, even though I'm in combat with the bird. And the reason you want to do this rather than, say, like, Health Funnel, or later you're going to get Torment Shadows. The reason you're going to want to do that is because of efficiency. Health Funnel is a channel, and it requires you to stand still, and it transfers your health to the Voidwalker, and that's really inefficient. Like in several levels. First of all, it's costing you health, which is mana, as I mentioned. You're have to stand still, and you're not fighting mobs during that time period. And the Voidwalker doesn't need that. You can go fight a mob by yourself, and the Voidwalker can regenerate health. Same problem with Consume Shadows. Consume Shadows is the channel, but the Voidwalker casts it, and he just gains health during that time period. And I think it also costs the Voidwalker's mana, which is not good. You want to have him spend the mana on Torment. So that's just a total waste of time. Is just to wait for your Voidwalker to regenerate his health. It's better to go attack another mob while that's happening. So I call that training wheels because when you throw the Voidwalker on it, you're given some time to dot the mob up, and then start the fearing and going to the next one. So when you get a Succubus at level 20, Succubus quest is a bit more difficult than your Voidwalker and Imp quests. Some people don't get it right on 20. Some people actually just keep the Voidwalker and use the Voidwalker the whole time. I think that's a bad idea. I think you should get the Imp, the Succubus as soon as you physically can. The Succubus is quite a bit better, in my opinion, than the Voidwalker. As I said, the Voidwalker, it looks like a tank. It doesn't do very much damage, but it can't hold aggro at all. And on top of that, it actually doesn't have quite as much health as you would expect if you're going to be fighting multiple mobs like I'd have. You saw that I only fought like 5 or 6 mobs, and he was already at half health. So, like, what's the point of this Voidwalker at all? You're going to get a Succubus. The Succubus is going to do quite a bit more damage. I think, say, you can't get a Succubus obviously at 15, but say I had a Succubus at this time, he probably would be doing like 13 damage, which is quite a bit more damage than the Voidwalker. And the way you're going to fight with a Succubus is, instead of letting the Succubus fight the mob for a while and dotting them up, what you're going to do is you're actually going to start. You're going to start with Immolate, because you always want to start with Immolate. You don't want to fear after you don't want to Immolate after you fear. You want to always use Immolate before you use fear. So you're going to Immolate, and the mob's going to run toward you, and you're going to fear. And then after that, you're going to be dotting them up with Corruption, because at that time, you're going to have instant cast Corruption. So the reason you do that is because Corruption and Curse of Agony do not break fear. Do not break fear when you cast it, but Immolate has a chance to break fear after you've. So say I cast Immolate on it now, there's a chance it will break fear and come back and attack me. So with your Succubus, you're going to Immolate, and then you're going to fear, and you're going to send the Succubus to attack. The Succubus is also faster. You see how the Voidwalker is not particularly fast. So that's another problem. Is in this for this. That's the reason why you don't do that with the Voidwalker. Is you don't use him as a dot. That's what you're actually going to be using your Succubus as. Is basically an additional dot to do that melee damage as a dot. The Voidwalker is a bit slow, so that's not how you use your Voidwalker. Use your Voidwalker to hold aggro while you're downing the mob up, and then fear it. So at level 20 to 30, you're going to be doing that. You're going to be using Immolate. You're going to use Corruption. You're going to be using Curse of Agony. You're going to be using Fear. And you're going to be using your Succubus basically as a dot. The Succubus is not going to be hit ever. You're not going to be hit ever because the mob will never ever get close to you. And you're going to be doing the same thing where you're going to be fighting one mob, and then you're going to go fight another mob while this is occurring. You can see my video to see me doing that. I should probably mention talent points at this point. So your first 5 talents will always go into Proof Corruption. Instant Cast Corruption is just totally OP. It's the best talent Warlocks have. Even if you go Demonology or Destruction, a lot of people will go and put points in Improved Corruption first because it's just so amazing. Let me show you. So I'm only going to use Corruption, and I'm going to put Corruption on the guy, and I'm going to run away. So you see he's taking damage from Corruption, but he can't hit me. And when Corruption gets low or completely goes away, I'm just going to put Corruption on him again. And so this mob is very annoyed, I'm guessing, because I have instant cast Corruption, I can just do whatever I want with him. I have complete control over him. He can't hit me. I can just run around and put Corruption on him. It's just the most amazing talent you can ever get for the Warlock. After you get 5 points in here, you have a choice between getting 2 points in here or 2 points in here. So what this does is it keeps your affliction spells from resisting. So it's not that annoying to some people to have to cast it again. What happens is they have instant cast Corruption, and they'll cast Corruption and it'll resist. So the debuff won't actually go on the mob. When that happens, a lot of people just have to use Corruption again because it's instant cast. That is very annoying, but also the main point is you're wasting mana. So when you cast Corruption and it resists, you just wasted 55 mana. and you don't want to waste mana. I think I explained it to you. Every mana you use is very important. You want to make sure it's used properly. So that's one of the reasons why you get a resistance for affliction. The other reason is fear is also an affliction spell. So you saw what I was doing, where I would immolate and the mob would run to me, and I would cast fear, and the mob would run away. When you do that, fear has a chance to resist, and when it resists, it starts hitting you. Getting hit is bad. When you start casting fear, you can actually get pushed back on that fear, which is even worse. And then you finally cast the fear, and maybe he resists again. So you don't want your fear to be resisted. That's the main reason you're getting some points in this. If you're going to be fighting mobs 2 levels higher than you or lower, you don't need more than 2 points in suppression. 3 points helps a little bit, but it's not a very big help. The biggest help is the first 2 points. So after you get 2 points in a suppression or life tap, like basically your next 5 points, 2 points are going to go into suppression, 2 points are going to go and improve life tap. The main reason is, I think I mentioned that health is mana for Warlock. Improve life tap, what that does is make it even more efficient. So when I life tap, instead of converting, basically 30 health to 30 mana, I'm going to be getting an additional 20% mana just for free. It's an awesome talent. It's one of the best talents Warlocks have. So this is the best one of the best this is the best talent. This is one of the best talents. So you're gonna have 2 points in suppression, 2 points in life tap, and your last point you can either put it into suppression to get a little bit more, or you can put it in improved life drain. That's okay too. Improved life drain is not very good, but it's okay. It's a good place to dump points if you have nowhere else to put them. You don't want to actually put in an improved drain soul. I've seen a lot of people make this mistake where they get improved drain soul. So the reason you don't want to put in improved drain soul is the way improved drain soul works is when a target is killed while you are draining its soul, you gain an additional mana regeneration for 10 seconds. It doubles your mana regeneration. And that sounds very good to some people because they often play maybe a priest and they're thinking the priest version of that, which is actually a good talent. This is actually a terrible talent. And there's a couple of reasons why it's a bad talent. So first of all, it's a bad talent because you have to be draining soul in order for it to activate. And it has to die while you're draining soul. So you may notice down here, drain soul is a 55 mana. This is a rank 1 drain soul. This is 55 mana that it costs. So when you are fighting the mob and the mob gets low, you actually have to cast the spell, and that decreases your mana regeneration. Because you cast the spell, now you have to wait 5 seconds before it starts regenerating. On top of that, the 55 mana is actually quite expensive in itself. Most creatures you're not going to be draining soul. So if you're trying to get it to proc, you're going to have to be draining soul at the end of the fight on every creature. On top of that, you may have noticed it says if the target is killed by you. Now you might be thinking, I'm the only one here. I'm by myself. Obviously it's going to be killed by me. But actually the Voidwalker does not count in that. So if you have a Voidwalker or a Succubus and you are trying to proc improve drain soul, if they get the last hit, it will not proc. So you just wasted 55 mana and it didn't even proc. On top of that, I think I've calculated out how much mana regen you get if you actually do hit drain soul. And it generally does not actually, it takes quite a few levels before it actually is higher than how much drain soul costs. So the amount of mana regen you get over 10 seconds actually is not as much as the drain soul, the actual spell costs for when you first get to this level. So in my opinion, it's a totally useless talent. After you've done your second row, you're going to go Fell Concentration. And the reason is I think I mentioned before that channeling spells, when you're being hit, it actually reduces the cast time of the channeling spell. So you may not get, so in this particular spell, it lasts 5 seconds. And it transfers 10 health from your opponent to yourself. So it's in total, it's going to be 50 health from your opponent. It's going to do 10 damage a second, and it's going to be generating 10 life a second for you. When you are channeling and the mob attacks you, that channel is going to basically drop to nothing in a single attack or maybe 2 attacks, and you're going to only get maybe 20 health instead of the 50 health that you were promised. It's going to be costing you 55 mana to only do like 20 damage. It's actually not, it's totally inefficient by itself. You're basically not going to be using Drain Life until you have Fell Concentration. Even with Fell Concentration, I've seen a lot of people play a Warlock and they grab Fell Concentration immediately and they start doing something called Drain Tanking. So what Drain Tanking is after they have Fell Concentration, they'll be fighting a mob, and instead of wanding it or doing that thing I mentioned to you, they'll send the pet in and they'll just do Life Drain. And this is actually a bad example because my pet actually grabbed it, so I turned off Taunt. Simply because Life Drain is actually terrible at this level. But what they do is basically the pet will be the mob will be attacking the Warlock, which I have already mentioned is bad, and the pet will be a dot, and they'll just be taking the damage, and the health will regenerate the damage they take, and they'll be just doing that, and they won't have to channel this too often because of as much as I have to do right now, so it won't be as much of a waste as I've shown you, but even with Fell Concentration, it's not 100% avoidance. It's only 70% avoidance when you get the full Fell Concentration. So you may notice how much mana it took to just kill that one mob. On top of that, I only fought one mob at a time. It's not a very efficient way of doing things. The mob is hitting you. It has a chance to, even with Fell Concentration, has a chance to cause an interrupt of your channel. It's just, in my opinion, it's not the most efficient way of doing things. As I said, as a Warlock, any damage you take is mana. Any mana is damage. So when you're being hit, you're actually reducing how much damage you're able to do. What you want is the mobs to never be able to hit you ever. As I said, let me think. But the reason you're even getting Fell Concentration is because sometimes you're just stuck up against a wall and a mob is coming at you and you have to go forward for some reason. Say you feared a mob and he's running around over here and you don't want him to run out of... Oh, I should probably mention that. When you are fearing a mob, one of the things you want to do is make sure the mob that you're fearing is within a certain distance of yourself. So, say I'm donning this guy up and I feared him away. I don't want this wolf to run too far away from me. Say I'm running this direction, I have to run this direction because another mob is attacking me. But you see, because this mob is so far away, it actually didn't do that in this case. But sometimes the mob will be too far away and will despawn from your aggro radius. When it despawns, it will unleash and run back to its original spot. So I've just spent so much mana dotting this guy up and fearing him and all this other stuff. And now he's run back and now he's full health. So I just wasted all of that mana. And as I said before, wasting mana is not good. So when you're fighting a mob and you're fearing him, you want to make sure the feared mob does not get too far away from you. You're going to be running after the mob to make sure it's within a certain distance. Like, see how I'm keeping a distance with the wolf? And now his fear is broken and I'm going to be running this way. What I'm doing here is actually called an official term. So when you... Oh, I just dinged. When you are fighting a mob and he's running away from you with fear and you're running toward the mob, this is I call reverse kiting. When the mob is fear ends and you're running away from the mob, this is called kiting. This is the normal thing. A lot of other classes do something called kiting. So you see, because I'm running away from it and the dots are still on it, I basically had to do almost nothing, and this mob is almost dead. Another thing you need to watch out for is leashing. Say you've dotted them up and feared them, and you don't touch them. Like you don't wand them, you don't cast any spells on them. After the fear was the last spell you cast. Maybe like 20 seconds later, that mob will unleash. When it unleashes, it'll remove all the dots off itself, run back to its starting position, and regenerate its health to full, and you've wasted it. It's the same problem as despawning off the edge of the map. So that's another thing you need to watch out for, is to make sure that it doesn't despawn off the edge of the map, and also that you are keeping it leashed to your character, so you're not wasting your time. Let me think. I think that's everything for that. So when you hit level 30, you're going to get a new dot called Siphon Life. And most of the time, I actually remove Immolate and replace it with Siphon Life. In my opinion, Immolate is actually the worst dot that Warlocks have. It's the least efficient. It doesn't stack with shadow damage like the other dots. It's not instant cast. It never becomes instant cast. So in my opinion, it's actually the worst dot. Oftentimes when I get Siphon Life, I'll throw Immolate off. But you don't have to. You can keep doing Immolate. It's just now that you have Siphon Life, you're going to be immolating, you're going to be fearing it, and then you're going to be adding Corruption, Curse of Agony, and Siphon Life. Siphon Life is an amazing dot. It's a light drain life, but it actually gives you health over time, and it's instant cast, and it's a 30-yard range. So instead of a channel, it's an instant cast dot. One of the good things about Siphon Life is the amount of health it generates is actually more than the amount of mana it costs. So it sounds like it's exactly the same, but you're going to be getting Shadow Power gear, Shadow Wrath gear when you're higher level. By the time you're level 30, you're already going to have quite a bit of Shadow Wrath gear. So you're actually going to be doing more damage and gaining more health than it actually costs to cast this spell. So this spell is basically going to be a free spell for you. You cast it on the mob, it's going to generate health, you're going to turn that health into mana, and then you're going to cast Siphon Life on the next mob. It's going to increase the ability for you to fight more mobs. You're going to be able to fight 7 mobs in a row or 8 mobs in a row with this spell. It's a very good spell. In terms of other things, I think I didn't mention what you should do at this level. Grim Reach is very good. It increases the range of your affliction spells. Fear is an affliction spell. It's going to increase your range of your fear. It's a very good spell. Nightfall is okay. I wouldn't rank it highly. It sounds very great. It sounds awesome in PvE and PvP settings. In my opinion, it's not particularly good. What Fightful does is it causes your corruption and your drain life to have a chance to enter to send a Shadow Bolt for have a free casting time. So instead of by the time you're this level, Shadow Bolt's going to have a 3-second cast time, and instead it's going to change it to an instant cast spell. And I think I did have Nightfall on that character that I showed you was fighting bears and Feralas, but in my opinion, it's actually only mediocre. I don't consider it very good. You could also get improved Curse and Agony if you want. You can also throw in an improved Drain Life. I don't consider it a very good talent. After you get Siphon Life, you could choose Curse of Exhaustion and improve Curse of Exhaustion. I don't find that to be a very good idea. I rarely use Curse of Exhaustion. So the way curses work is, say I throw Curse of Agony on him, and then I throw Curse of Exhaustion on him. So what Curse of Exhaustion would do is it replaces the Curse of Agony. So Curse of Agony is actually one of your best dots. It's you see how this is rank 1 Curse of Agony? I got rank 1 Curse of Agony around the same time as Corruption. Rank 1 Corruption. That's 40 damage versus 84 damage. So that's like twice as much damage from that one spell. So Curse of Agony is actually going to be one of your best damaging spells, and you don't want to replace it with Curse of Exhaustion. Curse of Exhaustion on top of that, I think it doesn't last very long. You have to reapply it all the time. In my opinion, it's not even very good in PvP. So I generally would continue putting in improved Curse of Agony or improved Drain Life so anywhere else basically rather than that. I don't think Amplify Curse is that great. It is an increase of one of your Curse Agonies every 3 minutes. I mean that's okay. I don't consider it worthwhile to keep it on my bar for that increase. Most people use it in PvP on top of Curse of Exhaustion. For some reason, I don't think that's I think, as I said, I don't think that's very good anyway. Because you're gonna, even in PvP, you're gonna want to throw Curse of Agony on your opponent. You're gonna get Shadow Mastery after that. This is very good. Increase your damage of all your dots and your shadow spells and your life drain. It's very good. It basically increases your total damage by 10% of everything, obviously excluding Immolate. So a lot of people actually say bad things about Dark Pact. I've seen a lot of Warlocks level up to the top of Shadow Mastery and then go to Demonology Destruction without even getting Dark Pact. in my opinion, Dark Pact is actually one of the best Warlock spells in the entire game. And I'll explain that to you in a moment. So the reason I consider it very good is what Dark Pact does is it's a bit like Life Tap, where it gives you mana, but instead of transferring your health to your mana, it transfers the mana from your pet's mana pool. Now, when you get Dark Pact, you're going to be level 40, and the mob the pet you're going to be using is either going to be a Fell Hunter or it's going to be a Succubus, like I showed in the video. And you are going to not be using the spells on your pet while you are leveling. The Fell Hunter, the only time you'd use it is if you're fighting spellcaster mobs, and you're not going to be using Lash of Pain. You're going to turn off Lash of Pain on your Succubus, not be using mana on your Succubus from now on. What you're going to be doing is, because your pet also casts spells, say I ran up and hit Torment, he will not regenerate mana after he casts Torment, but if I have Torment turned off and I use Dark Pact, it actually regenerates while in the middle of being used. So what happens is I use Dark Pact, and the pet regenerates his mana immediately, and that's actually really amazing. On top of that, Dark Pact does not actually count as a spell even on yourself, so you can actually cast Dark Pact while you are regenerating mana. So it doesn't actually make the 5-second rule occur. So you are regenerating mana, and your pet's regenerating mana, and you're taking your pet's mana and filling up your own mana. It increases the amount of efficiency you have, so you basically will never have to stop and wait for your mana to come back ever again. Your mana will always be at full. In the video I was using Dark Pact constantly. You may have seen me running around. I was making like a joing noise. I was casting Dark Pact, and basically Dark Pact will let you have 100% efficiency in fighting mobs. You will not have to ever stop fighting mobs. You'll be able to fight mobs constantly. It increases your efficiency to an insane level. It's an amazing spell. After you get that, you can choose Demonology or Destruction. It doesn't really matter. I think in that video I went Destruction. I went Improved Shadow Bolt. I was going toward Bane. I think I hadn't had that level yet. I think I was just Improved Shadow Bolt. Then after you get Bane, you're going to go Shadow Burn or Devastation, and after that you're going to run over and put in Demonic Embrace. If you're going to do Demonology, you're going to go Demonic Embrace. Some people put in Felt Intellect, some people put in Voidwalker. I would put in Improved Intellect, and the main reason is because you're going to have Dark Pact. Dark Pact means that your pet's mana is your mana, so an increase of 15% of your pet's mana is an increase of your own mana. In my opinion, that's worth it. You're going to go Fell Domination after that. After that, you're going to either put in Improved Hellstone or Improved Voidwalker, depending on whether you want the shield or not. This is actually quite useful because it increases. Voidwalker has a shield that they sacrifice themselves and it gives to you, and that shield is a humongous shield. If you're going to be doing PvP at all, you're going to be shielding yourself with your Voidwalker and then summoning out another pet with Fell Domination. After that, you're going to get Master Summoner, because Fell Domination is kind of weak without Master Summoner. If they have them together, you can actually cast your pet in 0.5 seconds. So it's actually really useful to have them together. And after that, I think you're going to be basically out of your points. Maybe you're going to throw some points in over here. Maybe you're going to do something else. And maybe you're going to go in Hold Power. It doesn't really matter where you put them. And that's how you're going to level up your Voidwalker to level 60. Once you hit level 60, you're going to be changing to a different spec. I'm not going to bother to mention much about it. It's a Demonic Sacrifice Ruin spec. This is going to be a leveling guide. This is not a level 60 guide. So if you want more information about that, there's plenty of places to find it. And then you're going to be level 60 at that point. And that's how you level up a Warlock from 1 to 60. I've mentioned 1 to 5. I've mentioned 5 to 10. I mentioned 10 to 20. I mentioned 20 to 30. I mentioned 30 and on. And actually 30 to 40 and 40 and on. So in terms of gearing, when you're leveling up your Warlock, what the gear you're going to want to look out for is Shadow Wrath. Shadow Wrath is the best gear for a Warlock because it increases the efficiency. So, for example, I have 3 pieces of Shadow. This guy's actually pretty geared. So I have 18 shadow damage on this character. when I cast corruption, that 18 shadow damage will increase the total amount of corruption by 18. So see how corruption does 90 damage over 15 seconds? Instead, it will do an additional 18 damage over those 15 seconds. And the reason that's important is because it actually increases the efficiency of your mana to damage conversion. So corruption costs 55 mana, and normally it only does 90 damage over that time period. But instead, because I have shadow damage, that 55 mana instead increases the amount of damage by that much more. So that's important because the amount of mana you generate is not infinite. So because it's not infinite, you want to get as much out of every single point of mana as you can, and increasing your shadow damage increases how good this is. Another important thing about shadow damage that's important to remember is life tap actually scales with shadow damage. So when I convert it from 30 to health to 30 mana, I'll be gaining that much extra mana. Also, I think it takes that much extra health. Yes, so it takes that much extra health. So shadow damage actually increases how much health it costs and how much mana you get. So that's actually pretty important. When you get higher levels, you don't like life tap. You won't have to life tap as many times. Every time you life tap is time you can spend on another spell. I'm not certain if shadow damage affects Dark Pact. I don't remember. Probably. But yes, shadow damage is very helpful for a Warlock. Another thing you're going to want to look out for is Gear of the Whale. Now, of the Whale means that it gives you stamina and spirit. And I'm of the opinion that of the Whale is the only kind of gear you need as a Warlock besides the Shadow Wrath. And the reason is stamina and spirit are both very important stats for a Warlock. Spirit, the way spirit works is when you tick and regenerate health and mana, spirit is how much health and mana you generate. And when I'm fighting multiple mobs in a row, and I'm trying to make sure to keep my mana up by using the 5-second rule. With higher spirit, you can fight more in a row. When you finally get Dark Pact, it stops being as important because you can just use your pet's mana pool. But even then, it's still quite important. Stamina is important because stamina is your health pool. As I said, health is mana. Any amount of health I have can be changed into mana. So the more health you have is the better. Some people also like int gear. I think int gear is not that particularly important on a Warlock. As long as you have high enough stamina, the health will change into the int. I would rate int as the third most important stat. I don't think it's as important as spirit or stamina. At higher levels, stamina and intellect get more important. But even at 60, spirit can be important on a long, like say you're going to be fighting Ragnaros or something, it's a long fight. Spirit can be important to make sure you regenerate your mana during that fight, because you're not going to be able to have a big enough mana pool to do everything you want to do during that whole fight. So in my opinion, spirit's still pretty important even at level 60. Let me think, is there anything else I want to talk about? No, I don't need... dungeons. I should talk about how to fight in dungeons. So, when you are leveling, you're going to be... Sometimes you're going to be offered to join a group to do a dungeon. Sometimes you're going to want to do a dungeon by yourself. The way you fight in dungeons is going to be completely different than how I was just fighting just now. So, when you go into a dungeon... Warlocks generally have a bad reputation in dungeons because... Warlocks are considered a DPS class, but in dungeons, Warlocks DPS is usually not very good. And the reason is you'll be following a tank, and the tank will run up and fight like maybe 2 mobs at a time, maybe three mobs at a time. Usually they'll be fighting 2 elites at a time. If it's like Dead Mines, they'll be fighting an elite and maybe a few regular mobs. And when you run up there, the mob will die within like 10 seconds. So the main problem is you have a couple of mobs and they'll die within 10 seconds each, and Curse of Agony takes 24 seconds to even do your full damage, and at the beginning it doesn't even do very good damage. So Curse of Agony is something you generally actually don't use very often in a dungeon, because if you applied Curse of Agony and waited, like the mob would only take a few damage before it died to other people. So what you're going to want to actually do is, sometimes people use Curse of Weakness, sometimes they don't bother to use any kind of curses. I think Curse of Weakness is actually helpful. Say there's 5 mobs and they run up to attack your tank. If you put Curse of Weakness on all of them, your tank will take less damage, and that's helpful because what happens in a fight is the tank will run up to fight the mob, and he'll have like 5 mobs on him, and the healer will sit there and wait for the tank to get aggro on all those 5 mobs, because if they cast heal immediately, those 4 mobs that aren't hit by the tank will run and attack the healer, and the healer will die. So what will happen is the healer will just stand there and wait for a while for the tank to get aggro on all the mobs. This is assuming the tank will actually do that. Sometimes the tank will only fight one mob, and he'll just leave those other mobs sitting there, and he won't ever attack them, and the healer will just be like, what the fuck, man? You're supposed to get aggro. But yes, anyways, so assuming the tank is doing his job and actually collecting all the mobs and getting aggro on all of them, then the healer will eventually heal, and that's how that works. Is when he first runs in, the healer will wait for the tank to get enough aggro on all the mobs before he'll start healing. So during that time period, the tank doesn't have any heals on him. Curse of Weakness is actually quite helpful to keep him alive during that time period. You may have seen videos where the tank will run in and he'll grab like one mob and he won't fight any other mobs, and the healer will refuse to heal until he grabs them, and the tank will just die, or some other bullshit reason. So I think, in my opinion, Curse of Weakness is actually quite useful in a dungeon, but you don't have to use it if you don't want to. So what you're going to do is you're going to be corruptioning a couple of mobs. This is assuming you have instant cast corruption, because it's after level 15. So you're going to be corrupting a couple mobs, and then you're just going to take out your wand and you're going to wand. The reason you're going to do that is because when you're fighting, oftentimes in a dungeon, the tank will run up and fight a couple mobs, and then when they're dead, he'll just move on to the next one, and he won't wait for you to regenerate. So you're going to have to take care of your mana. And the easiest way to do that is just to wand. Wand does not cause the 5-second rule. It's damage for free. So it's basically your melee. You're going to be running after the tank and just wanding during that time period. Your mana you're going to be spending on corruption. That's basically all you're going to be spending it on. You're also going to use your pet to attack. Sometimes they'll ask for the imp during dungeon play. That's fine too. The imp has all these buffs that they like a stamina buff and a fire shield and a bunch of other things. So that's also fine. Another thing I should mention is Curse of Recklessness. In that video, I actually had Curse of Recklessness up here, which I generally don't actually keep it up here. I usually keep it here. What that does is it actually lets you control your fear. So a big problem people have with Warlocks in dungeons is oftentimes they'll fear the mob, and the mob will run toward another pack, and he'll grab the pack, and now you're fighting 2 packs at once. So when you are fearing, generally you don't. You're told not to fear during dungeon, and that's fine too, but sometimes you will fear for some reason. When you do, if you put Curse of Recklessness on the mob, you see how he turned and started running to me, but now I done Curse of Agony, now he's running away. Now I did put Curse of Recklessness on him, and he runs toward me. So the reason that works is what Curse of Recklessness does is when it's on the opponent, it ignores fear. But it actually does not remove the fear. So you see fear is still on it. So if I actually change it, I can actually control this mob completely. The mob runs away. He's running away. I want him to run back to me. He runs back to me. I want him to run away. He's running away. I want him to run back to me. Oh, I'm out of range. Yeah, so that's how you use Curse of Recklessness, is when you want the mob that has fear to run back to you, you use Curse of Recklessness in order to do that. That's actually pretty important even in PvE settings. I think I used it a few times in that video because I feared him the mob, and the mob was running in the wrong direction. I wanted to run this way, so I put Curse of Recklessness on him and started running this way in order to get him to run that way. I thought that's an important thing. So I should probably explain that. So when I came up to the mob and I feared him, say I wanted to, after fighting this mob, I want to go fight this mob, because the way we do things is we dot these up and then we'll go to dot up the next mob. So I've dotted this mob up and I feared him and he ran that way. But I wanted to go this way, so I Curse of Recklessness on him and have him run toward me, and then I fight this mob, and then I put him back. So that's how that works. Is I wanted him to run in a certain direction. He wanted to run in a different direction. I told him, no, you have to go follow me back. That's how you use Cursive Recklessness. And I think that's everything I wanted to talk about. Sorry this video was so long. I tried to give every explanation of everything that you could possibly be talked about. If you have any other questions about what I was doing in that other video, or anything else, you can just ask me. I'll try my best, but I'm not internally online, and I'm not a content creator, so I may not even answer. So I'm just doing my best. Thank you very much. Bye bye.